Hello everybody, so today I want to talk about support items in My Hero Academia, and what I mean by that is support items that are applied to one's hero costume in the story. As we know, Deku has these sold for his shoot style, and now he has these new gauntlets that he's gonna use for his new training, and then we also have the belt that Aoyama has, for instance. You know, things like that. That's what I want to talk about today, and the reason why I want to talk about this is because in one of the recent chapters, I think it was 2 chapters ago or something like that, All Might said something really interesting, which was that although support items can be a really good thing for a hero, it is a very important thing not to start relying on these support items entirely, because the day, you know, these break or whatever, you know, if you can't utilize yourself as a hero without said upgrade, you're gonna be fucked basically. And that's what All Might wanted to say in that chapter, because when he was younger he tried to use support items and it simply didn't work out because they were too bulky and whatnot. It just didn't complement his quirk at all, so he decided he's not really gonna be using that. Instead, he's just gonna be using his hero costume and nothing that's really gonna add on to it. He's just gonna be, you know, entirely fighting with his own power. Nothing has to help him because it could simply end up going in a negative way. Now, the reason why I kind of wanted to talk about this is because looking at Deku in the story right now, he is using a lot of support items when he is training, and what I kind of want to see in the story in the future at least is actually to see these things break mid-fight and he's gonna have to adapt to the situation at hand. Like say he's fighting a villain, I want to see Deku really learn that a support item breaking, it is gonna have a bad consequence. You know, it's gonna be something that really affects the fight on his side very badly, but at the same time, if he can pull back and, you know, adapt to the situation, use his quirk entirely with his own power, that will really add to Deku's progression as a hero, not really as a character. I mean, technically that as well, but primarily as a hero. That's really what I want to get to, you know, him fighting villains basically. That's what it's really gonna add on to. We're gonna see him really learn to adapt to certain situations where he previously maybe couldn't have done so. Now, one other character that really seems to be at least focusing on his support item a lot is Aoyama. Assuming his belt were to break in a fight, what would happen? I mean, I think it did happen at one point, or I don't think it broke, but something happened to it and he wasn't really able to perform as well anymore. And in the recent chapter we learned that without that belt, Aoyama's quirk cannot function properly because his quirk and his body, they're not really perfectly in sync, kind of like One for All and Deku at the beginning of the story, except Aoyama didn't really inherit his quirk as far as we know. At least he was born with it. It just isn't a good match with the person it belongs to. Now, one thing that we could end up seeing in the story, and this could be in the near future, but it could also be, you know, far into the story, probably beyond what we can even imagine right now, is seeing something bad happen to Aoyama and someone is actually gonna have to help him out. Why would I say this? Well, I don't think All Might would bring this up unless it is something that's gonna be relevant at some point. Now, as I said, it doesn't have to happen now, but I kind of could see it happening with Aoyama, because Aoyama did have, and he probably still will have, some relevance in this arc, even if it's not for fighting purposes. But assuming his belt breaks for some reason and his quirk starts going wild, you know, we're gonna see either him adapting, learning how to control his quirk even better than before, more so than he ever had to in the past, because he's always relied on that belt. But you know, maybe if that belt breaks, he can't rely on it anymore, and a situation could present itself where even Aoyama may have to try his best to move to the next level, because it's not just about Deku and Bakugo, Todoroki, you know, even the less relevant so far in the story, they will eventually learn to rise to the challenge, like Jiro, Ashido, you know, even Aoyama, eventually even Mineta, Sato, Choji, and Koda, and so on and so forth. And I think this arc could actually be a really good stepping stone for Aoyama in that regard, much like it is for Jiro and Ashido at the moment, although that's not really for hero reasons, that's more about their characters as a whole, seeing Jiro open herself up a little bit more, and we see Mina being a pretty good teacher at what she does. You know, she likes to dance. But anyway, enough about that, because that's not really what I'm trying to talk about in this video. What I don't really want to see, however, is actually Deku needing to save someone because they seem helpless and whatever. especially not someone in their class. That's something that I really would hate seeing. And the reason I would hate seeing that is because that would kind of make them seem defenseless. And no one in the class should really have to experience that, I think. I believe anyone in the class should be able to fend for themselves, rise to the challenge themselves, rather than actually having to rely on, say, Deku or Bakugo, Todoroki, Kirishima, or someone else that may be stronger than they are. However, I wouldn't really be surprised if we do see a situation like that, simply because of how Aoyama described his problem with this belt, how it really is a useful thing for him in his everyday life. It is something that he, so far, just haven't been able to control on his own, and I just don't see him reaching that level of control in just one arc. I don't think it's gonna be that quick, especially if he hasn't trained enough to try and control it so far, because he probably thinks he can rely on this belt forever. But as All Might said, heroes that only rely on their support items, the moment they break, he's seen so many of them just fall. Not necessarily die, but he's seen them not being able to perform as well as a hero just because of this support item, and that isn't really how it's supposed to be, if you ask me. A hero should be able to perform just as well without it, but the support item should probably serve as a simplification when they're training. Like for instance, now with Deku, when he's trained to use this new technique, he kind of wants the support item in order to make it easier until he learns to control it properly without it. That's kind of how I see it, but Aoyama, he doesn't really seem to be in that state of mind. He thinks this belt is gonna help him, period. I might be wrong, I might be overlooking things. You might be having a completely different idea of what's gonna go down in the story. I would kind of love to know what you think about that in the comments below. So with that said, I'll end the video. So if you did, be sure to Detroit smash that like button if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new to my channel. This has been Chaotic Plus, and remember everyone, Toga is waifu, Toga is laifu.